the 4th International Service Management Congress at Ostfalia University in Suderburg, Germany, with international lectures and international research workshops. The key results are following.
She also introduced me to our next speaker, the two next speakers, and I have to say now we are seeing the presentation from Professor Dr. Erik Capistrano. I'm very, very happy to have you here. Actually, we have a memorandum of understanding with the University of the Philippines, and I'm very honored because for this faculty, it's the first MOU that we have, and this is the #1 university in the Philippines. And I can say that we presenting now one of the most talented researchers and professors from the Philippines, Erik Capistrano. Let me say some personal words. I sent him this data that Dave Marshall presented, and within 1 week, he returned 24 pages, fully written paper. Erik, I don't know how you do this. You're very smart, you're very fast, and you're great. And if I may tell you a story, and we were making fun on the Facebook already. Erik Capistrano was with us at the second conference. And as you can see on some pictures, he's a little bit shorter than me. And in Uelzen, in the town hall with the mayor, we have a typical German podest, and he was standing behind him, and we could not see him. So he stepped beside, took the microphone to the left. He was standing very cool and said, "Now I give my speech." Erik, you're such a great guy personally, very talented professor, and I'm very happy to have you here. I'm very happy to have this cooperation with the University of the Philippines. And I also want to thank Virgilio Manzano, who's the next speaker. We will conference him in. Erik, the floor is yours. Thank you very much for being with us.
All right. Thank you for the kind words, Dr. Larner. So yeah, good afternoon, good evening, good morning to everyone who's watching. My name is Erik Capistrano. I am an associate professor from the University of the Philippines, Virata School of Business. I'm teaching operations management and information systems, both in the undergraduate and the MBA program. And I'm also teaching research methods at the doctoral program. So a little bit of background about myself. I took my PhD in international management from National Cheng Kung University in Tainan City, Taiwan. My advisor, Professor Victor Chen, is as a well-known researcher in that same field that I am in, and that would include digital trust, privacy concerns, e-commerce, and etc. So for this afternoon, I will be sharing my results on that paper, as Dr. Launer mentioned, on the same data that Dr. Marshall previously discussed. So, but I will be taking a different route as far as this presentations go. So bear with me for the next 30 minutes. I am a lot for that one, as we look at the digital trust and workplace context, a regional comparative analysis on this theory. Okay, so start things off. So part one of obviously would be the introduction and the research questions that I've formulated for my particular angle for the same data set. So a little bit of introduction here. Of course, we know that IT is a very disruptive phenomenon, okay? And it has changed the way we behave and perceive other human behaviors along the way. And it also affected person-to-person conversations and interactions, cross-border commercial activities and transactions as well. So there's a lot of disruption that are going on because of the use of a great number of the digital technologies. Dr. Marshall already mentioned the ones that are covered in this study. So organizations become more and more globalized, so does their IT use. Right now, we are in this globalized setting. I'm in the Philippines, we have audience. I'm in Manila, we have audiences elsewhere in the Philippines. We have audiences from around the world who are watching this, helping us to put up this Congress, and that's a testament to how globalized organizations have become, and for that matter, how globalized IT use has become as well. And this applicability of actions addressing digital trust in the workplace can vary from country to country or even from region to region. There are some who might be okay with surveillance, having CCTVs in public places, but there are some who are not. And we want to find out where these differences lie. So for my research questions, I have two for this particular presentation that I will be making this afternoon. The first is that what can potentially contribute to the similarities and differences in digital trust in the workplace perceptions across the world? And of course, delving down to a number of geographic, demographic, and cultural contexts as far as analyzing these similarities and differences are concerned. So moving on to part two and go to my literature review. So we take a stab first at the fundamentals of digital trust theory. So for one, it's all about I've sourced it from a paper back in 2001 from McKnight and Shervani that says that the digital trust determinants come in many sources, and it can be in terms of the trust in the entity and the trust in the technology. It can also be in terms of the importance and relevance of security measures and the quality of the online presence, or it can be in terms of website information, data, and information security and website experiences. All of these have touched on what Dr. Marshall mentioned a while ago on the different aspects of digital trust that their paper have developed. So, of course, there will always be a need for global studies of this. As I mentioned a while ago, organizations have become more globalized, so does their IT use. So, the need for global studies is very much important. So that even if systems and infrastructures are similar, say we get the same provider, we get the same global provider for our own technologies in our respective workplaces, there are still some incremental and significant differences that contribute to the complexity of digital trust. And so we have a couple of examples here. Like my professor, Professor Chen, made in a collaboration that we had some years ago. We made comparisons of other countries' experiences to the Philippine context. So we compared it with what was published in terms of the United States, Canada, Taiwan, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Netherlands, and Greece. So that was one paper that we published back in 2015, and then a solo paper of mine recently published this year. I took the literature review from the experiences of these countries as are listed here: Jordan, Turkey, Mauritius, South Africa, China, India, Malaysia, and Indonesia. So it's important, but it is important for us to not only look at specific country contexts, but how do those contexts play in the larger picture of internationalization and globalization. So that's what we want to find out here. So just a quick recap of the present study. So as we've seen here, organizations have been increasingly utilizing technologies to improve effectiveness and efficiency. And the thing is, like, intensified tendencies as well to exert and implement control and surveillance mechanisms because of the increasing use of technologies in the workplace. As you have seen a while in the previous presentation, there's a lot of different technologies that were either issued to the individual employees or are monitored or maintained by members of the organization. And that would include certain control and surveillance mechanisms. And across different contexts, as I implied a while ago, this might be something that would raise concerns on different degrees in terms of privacy, in terms of appropriateness, and what is proprietary information. And therefore, it will be difficult to reach a compromise with employees because of these different aspects. Now, one of the interesting things as well is the phenomenon here is that, like, even though, let's say, you are in country A and you are an expat from country B, your initial perceptions of digital trust might be different, and therefore it will need some time for you to adjust to what is enforced in that host country. What are the rules? What are the things that you need to comply with as far as information security and privacy are concerned? And that would also affect digital trust. So that kind of reality is also important for us to consider in crafting whatever conclusions, either that's academic or policy implications if you're in the practice side of this phenomenon. So as for the methods, okay, so go very quickly. So kudos once again to Dr. Marshall and Dr. Launer for spearheading the data collection for this. And but for this particular study, I have included secondary data from the following public sources. So I've gotten data from the United Nations GEO scheme, the World Bank's gross national income per capita classification, and of course, the age-old Hofstede's cultural dimensions were acquired. So I will be using this as my classification variables, my, uh, as a basis to group the data, the survey data that we've collected over the last year or so. And just for the sake of transparency, I've employed SPSS 21 statistical software for all of the data analysis here that I'll be showing. So for the analysis and results, so we will be spending bulk of the time of my airtime here. So we're looking at the summary of initial analysis. So we'll be looking some of the descriptives of the categorical variables. And then I did explanatory factor analysis and reliability of the survey data to determine validity and reliability. I will not show the tables for factor analysis here because it would be too bulky. So for that, but the paper I've submitted to the Congress has those tables. So just suffice to say that the reason why I did exploratory factor analysis here is that we are still in the exploratory stage of this research. We're still trying to sort things out. We're still trying to improve on the data set as well. And therefore, I deem that exploratory factor analysis would be the more suited method to determine validity and reliability of the data here. And then, of course, I am also employing a correlation matrix to further evaluate the validity. And please take my word for it when I say that there are very minimal issues regarding the validity and reliability of the data. So we'll be proceeding to the next part. So this is now going to be the meat of my presentation. So I will be showing a battery of tables, some presenting the results of the analysis that I've made for this survey data. So the first table you're seeing is the MANOVA results for the continent. So this is really more just to give like a baseline picture of the things to come. So in terms of the continent, as we can see here, only in the confidence in the workplace technology is significant here. The rest have issue. The rest are basically non-significant. So when we look at, so this is both a plus and a minus as far as the perspectives are concerned. What do I mean? Because a lot of studies, unfortunately, when we look at global data, we tend to see it as one big family, as one big homogeneous group. Okay. And these results that you're seeing right now kind of like lends a testament to that. Now, of course, it has its own weaknesses as well, because in practical terms, it would be very difficult to craft certain laws and policies and even practices across. Let's say you're an MNE, a multinational enterprise. You have offices spread all over the world. It's difficult to come up with a common set of information security practices or any mechanisms that would encourage digital trust. So that being said, this table does give credence to that, but at the same time, when we delve deeper, when I'm using the UN GEO scheme, we see that all of the factors, all of the survey factors of what Dr. Marshall mentioned a while ago, the survey item questions now are all significant. And all okay. The UNGU scheme, as the MANOVA results go, it is a significant exerts a significant influence over these different factors. We'll see more of this later on when we delve into the post hoc analysis that I made. Now, as opposed to the GNI per capita, as per the World Bank classification, we can also see that by grouping the data according to income levels per capita does also exert significant influence over the different survey variables that were covered in this study. And lastly, for the Hofstede, for the Hofstede dimensions, I've incorporated all 6 dimensions of Hofstede. So what you're seeing right now is the power distance, the power distance dimension of Hofstede's cultural dimensions. I've classified the data as to high or low, like high power distance or low power distance. So there are two. So basically, this is a binary variable. So as you're seeing right now, almost all of the survey data, the digital trust variables are affected by power distance, by the degree of the power distance. Okay. As for individualism, not so much. As you can see, there are fewer variables here. There are fewer variables here that prove to be significantly affected by individualism. But as opposed to masculinity, the masculinity dimension, we can see even fewer. Okay, a little bit more. A little bit more here. There's also very few, but it's a little bit more than the individualism variable. There's a little bit more here. And when it comes to uncertainty, this is one of the most powerful that I've observed here. So not only are they significant, but some of them are very significant when it comes to the uncertainty factor, which is kind of like understandable. Trust is, if you even look at it, even intuitively, trust is a mechanism for to address certain uncertainties. Okay, so we can see there that by doing so, uncertainty can be a very big consideration if you want to develop digital trust in the workplace. As for long term, we can see a few as well. You can see a few as well. And for the indulgence, not so much. Indulgence is the newest dimension that the Hofstede organization included in their dimension. This is a relatively new dimension. So just for the sake of completing the whole 6 dimensions, I've also included it. And as you can see, only very few are are significantly being affected by this dimension of indulgence. Now, what's more important and what would be honestly be more exciting to see would be now the post-hoc analysis that I did for the UN Geo scheme and for the World Bank GNI. So so a little bit of background. The UN Geo scheme actually classifies the continents in the world into several subgroups, even within continents. So as per the United Nations, there is South Africa, South Europe, East Africa, West Africa, East Europe, South America, East Asia, Northern Europe, Southeast Asia, South Asia, North America, and West Europe, at least as far as the coverage of our sample is concerned. So these are the sub-regions that, as per the UN Geo scheme, that is represented by our data. So I've broken down these subgroups. Okay, I ran a post-hoc analysis on it using the Duncan method of MANOVA to derive certain subsets within. Now, what do these subsets that you're now seeing in this table tell you? All right, let me explain. So as far as the confidence in the workplace technology is concerned, the respondents from South Africa exhibits the least amount of confidence in the whatever workplace technology that they have right now. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we have South Asia, North America, and West Europe exerting the most confidence in the most confidence here. But here's the thing as well: the groupings signify statistical significance. So that means there are 5 statistically significant groups out of this many sub-regions, sub-regions that our data is represented. But also notice that there are some overlaps within South Asia and North America. Okay. So in terms of the confidence level, you can see probably that there would some from South Asia would probably share the same some of the same sentiments with Southeast Asia, Northern Europe, and East Asia. Whereas, and also some with North America, like some North Americans would probably also share the same sentiments as Northern Europe, Southeast Asia, South Asia, and East Asia. Now, why is this interesting to find out? Because if we look at it just on a surface level, we would imagine, or we would intuitively think that geographical neighbors would have similar or the same sentiments towards these different dimensions of digital trust. What is surprising here is that there are some who are not digital neighbors, as you are seeing here right now, who share same sentiments. North America and East Asia are basically in the different sides of the globe, for instance. So, but the thing is that this is an opportunity for us to learn more. Like why geographically distant regions are sharing the same sentiments. So the rest of the tables are also looking the same. So, for instance, for the trust in the personal work technology gadgets, these are the smartphones, the smartwatches, and all that. We can see similar, and we can see the similar phenomenon that's happening here. Southeast Asia has a similar sentiment with North America. Yes, and these are 2 differently distinct countries. Although, of course, if you look at the history of some of these countries, influences of the United States, for instance, are very heavy in the Philippines, which is the country that's most represented in the Southeast Asian group here. So that's what we can see here in this sense. So also looking at the technology that was installed in the workplaces, we can also see some of these distributions, some of these groups, and in this case, even a wider array of results here. And as we can see, there's a lot more overlapping. There's a lot more overlapping that's seen here. So we can see East Europe, South America, South Asia, West African countries share some sentiments with South Europe or Southeast Asia. So the same with the information systems in the workplace. This is a wider distribution that we've seen here, a larger set of groups that we're seeing here. The same for the people access. Okay. When you say the people access, these are your IT support. These are the people in your workplace, your co-workers, your managers, your directors, your executives. So you can also see how much they are trusting or not trusting the people in the workplace, depending on the regions that we see here. As for the support as well, for the support, we also see several differences here as well. And for the external, the way we trust our suppliers, our retailers, our logistics providers, the way we see them as well. Like again, these are arranged from the least trusting to the most trusting. So the same with the protection issues, and issues in protection mechanisms, and what's the good side about the protection mechanisms as well. We can see a lot of these differences happening. also in organizational processes as well, and also how we expect how our society to deal with it. Now, of course, for the interest of time, I will be going a little bit more quickly when it comes to the GNI per capita resource. But the bottom line here is that this lends a lot of empirical proof or empirical support that about us crafting data protection mechanisms or system protection mechanisms across different countries. So for the GN capital, so it's either low. In the case of our data, we had three groups. So these are the lower middle income, the upper middle income, and the high income individual groups or countries here. So as you can see here, generally speaking, the higher the income gets, the more trusting you become. So that's the overall or the general idea here, the general result that we're seeing here. And a lot of times, a lot of instances across these different variables that you're seeing right now, the lower middle and the upper middle, the lower middle income and the upper middle income countries share the same sentiments. And then the high income groups are very much separate from the other two. So here. So of course, all of these numbers don't mean anything unless, of course, we give our own insights, our theoretical and the managerial insights on this. So to answer the first research question, yes, some geographical neighbors will have similar takes on what contributes to digital trust in the workplace, as you have seen in the numbers. But there are also some instances wherein geographical neighbors are distinctively different on other dimensions on digital trust in the workplace. So like I've said, one of the biggest takeaways from this is that some sub-regions that are culturally close have both statistically significantly similar and different takes on the same dimension. So even though they are culturally similar or even if they are geographically similar, okay, it's not to say that they would also be similar in their attitudes towards digital trust in the workplace for certain aspects. So, okay. And as for the second research question, yes, in general, those located in Africa tend to exhibit less favorable perceptions towards all dimensions of digital trust in the workplace. And respondents from North America, West Europe, North Europe, and East Asia exhibited the most favorable perceptions. Incidentally, especially for East Asia, a lot of their technology is highly advanced compared to the rest of their Asian neighbors. So, and this would include China, Japan, and Korea. So a lot of them have very established digital practices, and therefore it's also expected that probably their workers, their employees, have a lot more trust in what they're doing there compared to the rest of their Asian neighbors. And then the rest are in the middle, and oftentimes sharing the similar sentiments. So South America, South Europe, South Asia, and Southeast Asia share similar sentiments with each other. Okay? So these are the ones that you can, in terms of if you want to classify them into three big groups, as to least trusting, somewhere in the middle, and highly trusting. This is it. Okay? This is one direction that we can look into. Now, some of the theoretical implications, of course, this further contributes to the original dimensionality arguments of McKnight and Bunny and McKnight et al. As far as the multi-dimensionality of trust is concerned. These two papers are some of the most fundamental discussions, academic discussions, as far as online trust or digital trust is concerned. So it lends empirical support to these concerns, and also lends further support to arguments that there are many other factors aside from the aforementioned ones that also influence evaluations towards building digital trust. But what's more interesting for us, of course, for a lot of us, would be on the practical applications. While there's some common ground as proposed by Dr. Marshall and Dr. Launer, there are many contextual realities that create different and even unique situations that present new insight. And these insights would include what digital trust is, what should be the focus as far as the three is concerned, the technology, the people, and the process. Some countries, some regions would focus on a specific dimension of process, where others would compared to others. Some would say some gadgets would be better, or like IS systems would be better in terms of being trustworthy and all that. And we should take note of that. We should recognize that. And therefore, also what should be prioritized as far as implementing some policy or mechanism to we should take into account where we are, where are we implementing this, and what are the general income levels of the people who are working in that organization. So for example, in the crafting of the rules, regulations, and practices regarding digital trust protection mechanisms, the following must be considered. Where are these going to be applied? Who will be affected? Who will be affected? So just to give you an example, when I was in Germany 2 years ago, one of the things I was really interested at was the data protection, the general data protection practices that they have there. And one of the things that we were discussing about was that the comparison of the experiences in Europe and its European citizens compared to, let's say, the experiences in the Philippines. In the Philippines, the mechanisms for data protection are still very raw. It's still very raw. It's still up to the organizational level. We don't have a very comprehensive or a very strict level, okay, or of regulations on that. We do have a law, but the law is not being criticized as being too draconian or too rigid, just to satisfy with minimum requirements. And it did not even take into consideration how Filipinos actually use their devices in workplaces and in personal use. So that's what I'm saying. It's not enough that, let's say, when we craft regulations, we just pattern it after best practices. We just pattern it after companies who do it very well. We also need to take into consideration, in this case, some contextual factors, as we have seen here. So the question is, if in terms of benchmarking, if we want to improve in my country, in the Philippines, if we want to improve our data protection, privacy, and privacy regulations, who do we look at? Do we look at Europe, or do we look at North America, or do we even look at Korea, for instance? Do we do that? What's the best? Okay, what's the best solution? So these initial results that I presented to you gives that direction. Okay, gives that notion wherein when we do craft specific practices and regulations and mechanisms for this, we need to, and in order for us to have our employees buy into this and agree to these regulations, to these practices, we need to take note of how much they are trusting the present setup that they have in their organizations, as seen here in the results of this research. So obviously, this paper of mine has much to go on. There's still a lot to dig into and to dig into. I'm actually planning to run my own regression analysis on these factors and see which ones are actually significant or not. And hopefully, these results will lead to a lot more policy implications for both academe and practice. So with that, okay, thank you very much for your attention. And you can get in touch with me through my various online presences as stated there as well. Thank you.
Erik, thank you so much. What a great analysis in a short of time. Now we have more time to research. I'm looking forward researching together with you. It's really a great analysis that you already started, and it will be great to see much more. Thank you very much also for being with us in Germany and supporting us in the Philippines. Erik, it's such a great pleasure working together with you. I hope we can keep this friendship up long time.
Thank you. Yeah, looking forward. Hopefully, when the coronavirus would be finally be addressed and we can travel again, it's going to be a lot easier for us to collaborate and work together.
That would be perfect.
But for now, we need to we need to trust on our digital technologies right now for us to continue our work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for listening. Visit our website, YouTube channel, and Facebook site on the internet.